Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have James Sinclair, serial entrepreneur, founder's founder, as he calls himself, transforms first-time founders from visionaries into successful CEOs by teaching them how to earn the right to win one strategic win step at a time. Welcome to the show, James.
Hey, thanks so much, AJ.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, James. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about startup success from idea to reality. In this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But first, let's understand a bit more about you, about your journey, about your background, so that people learn who they are listening to.
Yeah, sounds good. So hi, everybody. I'm James Sinclair. I've built and sold a few startups across gaming, infrastructure, and B2B SaaS. I've led innovation projects for some of the big guys, including Tata, SAP, Google, Nike, and some others. And now I spend most of my time in the trenches with first-time founders, helping them kind of turn their raw ideas, as you've said, into actual paying customers. I have a very simple playbook. People want that they'll pay for, do it fast, keep it lean, and do it with a great set of people around you. And each week I've been doing that through my newsletter, Startup to Scale Up, which goes out to about 140,000 founders around the world, just giving frameworks and learnings kind of from the trenches with battle-tested playbooks that founders can actually use to make a difference and move their idea forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely, James. So you say that most startups are dead before they start up. Can they come alive by reading your newsletter or whatever you teach? Help us understand first why you say that, and then we'll come to your newsletter also.
Yeah, I think most startups are dead on arrival. The question of can I be of value and can I provide service? I think when you have to think about people giving advice, myself included, it's an opinion. And all we're helping founders do is think about thinking. We can't tell them how to do it. You can't just copy a blueprint. When you look at some of these unicorn founders who've done amazing things, it's a cracked mirror. Like if you try and replicate it, it just won't work. What you can do is take the kind of the learnings, the insights of how they got through their problems and apply that to your own business and see if that can work. But the reason most startups kind of are dead before they've started is so many startup founders are obsessed with kind of building a product. I want to build a thing and I just want to start building my thing and I want to get going on my thing. When instead what they should be doing is thinking, how might I solve a problem where there are a line of people out the door willing to pay me for solving that problem? And so that mindset from solving a problem, versus just building a product is a really big mindset for first-time founders. They have the idea and they just want to build, and it makes sense. They're excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. But many want to build a startup and scale it so that they can exit, and exit at a very good price. Does that mindset work? Because again, that is also not thinking about solving a problem. Rather, your mind is so set on this particular exit or building a unicorn that the customer is left behind, the product is left behind, and you will leave behind a failure very fast. How does that work on the ground?
Yeah, I think if the intent of starting a startup is the intent of creating this mythical unicorn, well, you might as well go back to work for someone, because the reality is the odds are so low. But, one of the things I think about is why? Why do you need a unicorn? How much money do you really need? And so the way to think about it is, what if you just had a business that was doing $300,000 a year? Would that be great? $600,000, would that be great? And the scale to unicorn just takes venture capital, it takes someone else's money, and you lose ownership at each step. So when people are thinking about, I want to start a startup because I want to create a unicorn, well, it starts with the first step. Well, what might you do where someone's willing to pay you? And if you're lucky enough to become a unicorn, that's an outcome of you doing a great job. You can't go in and say, I want to be a unicorn. You can only say, look, I want to build something great that the market wants. And if I'm lucky and if I do it right, perhaps at some point the market will reward me with unicorn status.
Absolutely. So let's look, for example, let's look at Amazon or all the big companies. They had products which others were willing to pay for, or service they others were willing to pay for. But then it were they were all in losses for a long, long time. If a product like that or service like that has such a long gestation period, do you think a startup will be able to actually follow that line? Because then you got to, make money from day one, or otherwise you got someone, friend as Jeff Bezos or any of these top guys as someone who is funding you.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of a market change from the kind of reckless build at all costs, grow at all costs, do whatever you can at all costs. And we're seeing that kind of move in a different direction towards kind of this other side, which is actually profitable, efficient growth. And that's something I think we've seen more and more come out of the market, which is actually, why can't you build a product that is profitable out the gate? Why can't you build a product that has efficient growth? Now, there are some businesses where the cost of expense of building and developing and designing are going to be naturally, impossible for you to get to profitability out of day one. But I think market has changed. It's asking for businesses and asking for founders to not be reckless with their thoughts of, if we build it, we'll work out how to make money later. I think a lot of that era has gone.
Right. So that is why you see a lot of these people, new startups have all focused on artificial intelligence, putting all your things basing on AI and then going to the market, because it can then, if you are solving a problem, then it can perhaps start making money from, in a very short time. But then again, it has a risk, because you are depending your whole product itself or service itself on based on somebody else's idea. Either it's on chat gpt or perplexity or any of the things that you name it. Is that again a good idea for a startup in today's time? Then you are just playing a very short game, and then it can just get wiped out along with if any sort of change happens in the in any of these platforms.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd remember, but many years ago, there was this whole conversation around dependency on platforms. There was a lot of people building their business on the back of Facebook, on the back of Twitter, right, on the back of LinkedIn, on the back of all of these, Candy Crush, the original kind of game on Facebook that launched. Right. And what you saw is then Facebook changed their API settings, and right, all of a sudden, all of these businesses went out of business. I don't think AI and the AI platforms that deliver it are the same, because they are foundational platforms. You can access AI technologies in your AWS account, in your Google Cloud, in your Azure account. So I don't think you are latching onto someone else's product and building an extension. And to reinforce that example, it's not like you're building a extension to Salesforce. And if Salesforce wakes up tomorrow and doesn't like your extension, you're dead, or you're building an app in the App Store, and if the App Store doesn't like what you're doing, you're dead. I think AI is actually an underlying infrastructure opportunity. So I don't think there's a concern there. I think the concern around AI is building something that is actually just a wrapper around, doing the job that ChatGPT can do if you went directly. And you're going to see a huge explosion of these wrappers that already exist. I mean, you probably saw them on the internet just like me. They take your photo and they promise to convert 10 photos into LinkedIn portraits, or, right, turn your contracts into this. All of these are just sending super prompts into ChatGPT and giving it back. And with the expectation that AI is going to get better, get faster, and get cheaper, all of these kind of short-term AI plays will naturally just fade away, because they just don't deliver enough market value. And so what I think you're going to see, and I think Sam Altman from OpenAI talked about it recently, where he said the companies that do great on AI are the ones who recognize we're going to get better and are excited by us getting better. The ones that are going to die expect us not to get better. And so I think building on AI is mandatory. I think you have to have an AI first strategy, both because you can accelerate, you can build, you can get to market quicker, you can market quicker. All of these things that AI brings you is accelerators. But what it won't replace is your requirement to have a good idea that people want and are willing to pay for. So you can use any tool to shortcut, any tool to accelerate, but none of those tools will replace the requirement that people actually give a shit about what you're building.
Right. Right. So, James, to understand, you talk about building products people actually want. On the other side, a lot of people say you got to tell the people what they want, and that is where and so come out with a product. So what? How do you tackle both these things? Do I first build a product, go to the people, create a market for that, or do I go and first do my survey, and by that time their requirements change? How does it work? What would you advise such startups?
Yeah, I think build a product people want doesn't necessarily mean they want the iPhone before it's come out. People don't know the iPhone existed, and so they couldn't want an iPhone. But what they did want, or what is clear that they wanted, was a better experience. What is clear that they wanted was a better user experience, was easier ways to connect with people, was the ability to get this app store. It turns out people did want connectivity. So, you always hear that excuse of like, people don't know what they want, so I'm just going to build it and bring it to market. And that is the strategy, Kevin Costner Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. But they don't come. And they never come. And so it's not to say that that your market knows exactly what you want. Uber. I didn't know I wanted Uber, but I did know that I would like to get to the airport without having to take my car, and I'd like to do it reliably and at a fair price, and I don't need a limo to take me. I would just like a normal car, right? So building a product people want means the problem you've identified is painful enough that people would pay for a solution. It doesn't mean that you have this huge market raising their hands saying, we wish there was an Uber, we wish someone would invent an iPhone. It just means someone has experienced a problem to a level or to a degree they would likely pay for a solution. Because there's a big difference from having a problem and having a problem being willing to pay for it. And I'll give you a great example of that is maybe 3 years ago, a truck pulled up at my neighbor's house and put gas in my neighbor's car. And I was standing there watching it happen. And I was like, what is happening? And he's like, oh, I couldn't be bothered to go to the gas station, so I'm trying this service, and they come and they'll put gas in my car. And I was like, that sounds fantastic, but you're still standing outside because you have to unlock your car. You're still waiting the entire time because then you have to lock the car, and you're now paying a premium. I'm not sure if you've actually saved any money. And so that type of idea in this market, and I know it works in the Middle East, there's a couple of other markets it works really well, but in this market just wouldn't work because, yes, people are annoyed about standing at a gas station for 6 minutes, but not to the extent they're willing to pay a significant premium for the solution. So that's how I think about, build a product people want and will pay for.
Right. What about, ideas? See, a lot of people have their own ideas, original ideas. Then they talk amongst friends or whoever mentors, and then look at whether they can implement it. Nowadays, there are idea generators also. You can generate hundreds of ideas and see if anyone works for it. But however many ideas you get it, you need to validate it. Either you go down in the market and then fail and come back. What is the best way to validate an idea, James?
To talk about it. You see a lot of founders, they put on their LinkedIn profile, stealth startup. They don't want to tell anyone what they're doing. No one wants to steal your idea. And the second part is, if you give two different founders the same idea, they will go in completely different directions. They're not going to come up with the identical solution at the exact same time. But the best thing to do is to talk about it. And the reason why it's so good is because maybe your idea that at its foundational level is kind of good, maybe kind of ish interesting, maybe hasn't. Each time you talk about it, you're going to refine it. You're going to find new insights. You're going to find new directions. And so before you write a line of code, you've iterated the idea 10 times in your head. What about this? What happens when this happens? And this is about talking to people, not only in your family and friend group, but people outside your family and friend group, right? People who are experiencing the problem. You don't go to a family member to talk about an IT routing problem that you think you can solve with hardware. Where your mum's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I love you, so it sounds great, right? You talk to the person who's experiencing the problem. And so for a founder who's at the origination kind of stage of thinking, what is my idea? One of the most dangerous things that exists is, an entrepreneur looking for a problem. Because an entrepreneur looking for a problem will tend to give more gravitas to problems that aren't really problems because they're so excited to start. And it's a long process, 3 months, 6 months, a year. I still don't have my problem. So, okay, I'll just take this one. But in reality, the more that you're in traffic, the more that you're talking to people, the more that you're going to meetups, the more that you're exploring, the more chance you have for an aha moment or for something to click that says, ooh, that looks interesting. So the search for finding a problem is really just about getting in traffic and getting hit by cars consistently until something crosses your path that you can attach to, and having the capability to recognize an idea when it comes across. Part of it is putting out the surface area for luck, right? Luck is the moment where you have a good idea. But the second is having the skill to recognize luck when it's in front of you and to listen and hear the good idea. And I think for a lot of kind of more senior entrepreneurs, that comes down to understanding how to shut up and just listen, and not listen because you're looking to respond, but listen to really listen and hear what the people are saying. So when people are looking for an idea, I tell them, great, email some people, go to some things, do some things, become overwhelmed with like just doing stuff, because there's no scenario that A, you don't get cleverer, B, you meet some new people, and C, if you're lucky, maybe an idea comes along. And if it doesn't come along, maybe a co-founder comes along that does have a good idea. And there's nothing wrong with being a number two.
Nothing wrong with that. What about, you talk about, most dangerous lie first time founders believe. What is this lie about? Help us understand this.
That it's achievable, that they can succeed. It's the odds and the numbers. I think the numbers, and I'm probably a little bit wrong, but rounded to the nearest whole number, your chance of success is 0. Rounded to the nearest whole number. That's how low your chance of success is, right? So this concept of I'm going to leave my paying job where I have vacation days, I have health benefits, I have a paycheck that clears, and I'm going to swap my 40-hour work week for an 80-hour work week with no paycheck, no health benefits, no time off, and if I work hard enough, I'll make it, is just fundamentally not true. Right? For a majority of people, they will not see that success. And so the biggest lie is if you build it, they will come. The biggest lie is I'm going to go out and just raise some money. You're not going to raise money. No one's going to give you any money. Customers don't come to you out of pity. They come to you because you are solving a problem that they're willing to pay for. And so I think the lie is around kind of this predatory environment that the startup founder has been given. I wear the hoodie, I work in my office, I have the stickers on my laptop, I'm doing cool things, I'm on Slack. It's all fucking bullshit, right? Like in reality, it's hard work. That's what it is. And people don't understand often what hard work looks like. They think they know what hard work is. And when you become an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, I'm ready to do the hard work. But you have probably never done the hard work it takes to be a founder. I mean, let's take you. How many of these episodes have you done? Hundreds?
Pardon?
How many episodes of this YouTube show have you done?
Hundreds, more than several hundreds.
Several hundreds, so you have to be on Podmatch. I got your automated emails. I got your things, right? It's just hard fucking work, right? And no one can tell you how hard the hard work is. And, it doesn't work overnight. Right? It's not like you did your first episode and everything came to you. You've had to iterate and build and change and adjust. And how does it make money? And what's my financial model? There is no hard work like the hard work of working for yourself. And so the biggest lie told to startup founders is you can do it. You probably can't, because you've probably never experienced the pain. And so the ask that I ask founders to do is accept the fact that you're probably going to fail, and spend every day walking backwards from failure, which is really the full circle to your conversation, AJ, at the beginning, which is I want to be a unicorn. So instead of fighting to become a unicorn, how about you do this? Every day, take one step backwards away from failing and focus on not being a failure for the first couple of periods or months or whatever it takes. You don't get to turn around and race towards success until the winds are in your direction. And I think that's the lie that's told to a lot of founders.
Right, James. A lot of people who are planning their startups, they will listen to you and they will say, James, you are puncturing my self-belief and my self-motivation and everything. How do they balance out this whole thing about, about the things that you talked about, and then about self-belief about themselves as well as their idea?
Well, two things. And the first is, You're allowed to be the shittest CEO that ever existed. You're allowed to be the worst CEO, the worst people manager, the worst product builder, the worst YouTube lives. You're allowed at the beginning to be the worst of everything, right? No one cares. You don't have enough customers to get annoyed at you, even if they did care. So the issue isn't trying to puncture your soul and tell you don't do it. It's actually the exact opposite. It's saying when you step into it, how do we step into it with our eyes wide open that this is going to be impossible? But I believe I have the resilience, the grit, and the want that I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to do the work and I'm going to show up every single day, itching back from failure. Again, I'm not racing to success. I'm walking backwards from failure. That's what I want to be. I want to make sure by the end of today, I haven't failed. And if you do that very incrementally, and you do that like yours, hundreds of shows, hundreds of moments, hundreds of steps, at some point the wind is in your favor. And when the wind is in your favor, you get to turn around and start focusing on success. So a lot of, even the reason I started the newsletter is because I truly want founders to succeed. I care deeply, right? I've been one. I've had failures, I've had successes. But at the same time, I want people to understand the reality of what it takes. Right? I want people to be okay with that and then say, okay, if I accept the chances are 0%, what should I do? I'll tell you what you do. You make sure your problem is a real fucking problem, right? You make sure people actually want to pay for it. And if you do a couple of small things, you take these giant leaps away from failure. All of the founders that just go to Upwork and hire an engineer. Think about how much cheaper it is to ideate an idea, you and me talking. We would go from an idea to a better idea over half an hour, as opposed to me taking that idea, going to Upwork, an engineer builds it. I realize it's the wrong thing. I've got to build it again. At some point, I'm running out of money and no one cares, right? So what should a founder do that wants to be a founder? Number one, don't quit your job. Instead, if you have a job that lets you learn. If you have a job that has access to anything that lets you consume information, and just start getting in and reading and meeting and going to things and getting out there and get out from behind your computer. And I understand COVID made it really easy to wear fluffy slippers and sit behind your computer and just believe you can build a business. And that's true. But for a first-time founder, you're going to need a tribe. You're going to need an army of people who are wanting you to succeed and have made other mistakes so you don't make them. For example, don't do this because if you do this, it won't work. You need the people in your life to be able to say, oh, I tried that. It doesn't work. You should try something else, right? You don't need to make all the mistakes yourself as a founder. It's okay to let other people make the mistakes.
Right. So the whole idea is about this, leaving this idea about being your own boss and actually getting down to hard work. Is it about that just?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's great about being a startup founder is that you are your own boss. You're the master of your own destiny. You get to choose, but you're not. It's a fallacy. It's a lie as well. Because in reality, you do all the work to build the product, to do the marketing, to build the website, all the words, all the everything. But the minute it's in the market, you don't decide if you're successful. The market does. Right? You don't decide if you're, I just had a newsletter that said the disruption. You can't say I'm disruptive. Only a market can tell you that you've replaced something else that was a bad way, and that's disruptive. You can't say this is innovative. Only your market can. You can't say that you are, doing growth. Growth comes from the market actually growing. So all of these words that startup founders hear, growth, disruption, innovation, funding, they're outcomes. If you want funding, show me the stack of receipts that show me you deserve it. Because if you think you're going to bring me an idea, a business plan, a template model, and tell me invest in this, why? Why would I? So I think a lot of these conversations that we're having with founders now is about changing their mentality to say, it's okay, right? It's fine. I want you to be excited about being a founder. Go get your hoodie, put some stickers on your laptop, go get Slack, do all the things that you think you want to do, get out of your workplace, wake up a bit later. But ultimately, what you're actually doing is mastering your destiny and basically make sure that in advance of that, you're right, or you're as right as you possibly can be, right? You might not be right, because the market decides if they want to buy your product, but you can be more right than wrong.
Right. Mastering your destiny. First, you think, that you have a great idea, so you will become the master of your destiny. Then you start building up, market is the master of your destiny. And after some time, you come to think about perhaps An investor will be the master of your destiny. Who is the master of your destiny when you are a startup founder? Is it again the yourself, the market, the investor, or bootstrapping? How should one look at it?
It's always you. You should always be the one, but your destiny is going to be defined by the market, right? And so if you don't go out and invite them, the market's a stakeholder in your destiny. Everyone is a stakeholder. And so to believe that you are so right about what the market wants and to not go out there and to talk about it, to investigate, to try to play is just foolish. Right. So I think that's the big journey that I try and push founders on, which is what are these tiny things you can do before you write a line of code? And just to be clear, I'm not being a Debbie Downer. I'm not saying don't be a founder. I want more founders. I love it. I think it is the most amazing concept. But if you've never been a founder before and you work at a big company, before you give it all up, why don't you go work at a startup? Go work at a startup and see what it's like when, it's a 10-person team or a 30-person team or a 60-person team. Don't go from a job that, working for a company that has thousands of people to working by yourself, in your bedroom, right? Get as much experience as you can, go out there. And the more you do, there's just no scenario that you don't, and I said this a second ago, you don't get cleverer, you don't get a better network, and you don't get more chance for luck. Right? Luck is not something that luck you create. You create luck. The more things you do, the more chance luck will cross your path. It's just a fact.
Right, James. Nowadays, there is a lot of talk about, resilience, perseverance. And then in Silicon Valley, as they say, fail. If you have to fail, fail fast. How do you balance, this resilience, perseverance with failing? When do you know it's time to leave this idea and move on to the next idea, or perhaps onto a job itself?
Yeah, that's the toughest, shittest question, because what is it? Wait, what is it? Is it because I've built something bad, or is it because I'm waiting for the market to know I exist? Is it because I am talking about it badly, or because no one cares? And so, they call that the dip. The dip is that moment when you've done all of this work and you're waiting for all of your flowers. You're waiting for all the customers to come. You're waiting for the traction. And that's a dip, because during that dip, you're just sitting waiting. You've done everything you can, you've built, but where are the people? And you don't know if it's because you need to make a market adjustment or because it's just more education, more things, more conversations, more stuff. I think the, fail fast is really a concept of the fastest team to learn wins. And what I think I mean by that, and I think it was Aaron Levy that talked about it, was the team that builds something, gets it into the market, understands how to understand what's happening, learns, iterates, and re-releases. The fastest team to do that, clock speed they call it, is always going to win. Always. Fastest team to learn wins. Fact. And so as you're going out to the market, it's if something's not working, you have to make a judgment call. Is it you? Is it them? But ultimately, you go incrementally. But very often, this is, they talk about the pivot, when companies, but almost every major company that you and I have heard of was a pivot. The famous story is that Shopify started as a snowboard store selling snowboards, and they built an inventory system to make it easier. Shopify started as a snowboard retail store, right? Ridiculous. But that's because they were clever enough to see the signals and to realize they built something. MailChimp was a product of an agency. There's so many amazing examples. Even Pinterest. Right. Pinterest was a place where you could go to add things from multiple stores to one cart. So you could check out from like 10 different stores in one transaction. But what they realized is people were saving stuff in their cart and then sharing it with their friends. And they were like, no one cares about the transaction. What they care about is the capability to share things from all over the internet with different people. So when you think about iterations or pivots or adjustments, or have I just built the wrong thing? If you've done the pre-work of trying to make sure you're building into a market with a problem, it means you're running less on assumptions and slightly more on data. 1 iota more, right? It's all gut at the beginning. But you're just trying to introduce data as and when you can to kind of support your hypothesis, to prove your hypothesis. Was I right about this? But the more in touch with the market you are, the more you're talking to your market, and the more you're and you know exactly who the first customer is going to be because you're speaking to them, the more likelihood you're probably going to have a little bit of success. Maybe.
Absolutely.
And that's
There's
it. The
much
maybe
to-
is the big part. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, AJ, but maybe is the big part because there's no guarantee, right? All we're trying to do is put the odds one iota in our favor, one step at a time. That's it.
One step at a time. There's much to learn from you, and let's so learn from your book. Starting a startup. Who is this book for? Is it for the failed guys, or is it one who need to learn a lot from the beginning?
Well, one of the famous phrases that I love is first-time founders obsess about product, second-time founders obsess about distribution. And so starting a startup, which is coming out not for 8 months, pending publisher moving along swiftly, but it's really for first-time founders. Like, where do I start? What do I have to do? And how do I do this step by step, incrementally, and from the trenches? I mean, one of the things that I was so keen about is a lot of the frameworks that I read, the coaches that I had, the mentors that I paid for, it's all nice. What do I actually do right fucking now? Right? What do I actually do? And how do I do it in steps? You read these amazing books, 0 to 1 is an amazing book. The Lean Startup, amazing books. What do I actually do? And so starting a startup was me taking all of these playbooks and frameworks that I've created that I've been doing as part of my newsletter. And we reached about 3-4 million downloads. And I was like, you know what? I could just write this out for people as an instruction manual. It doesn't guarantee success. If you're looking for guaranteed success, if you're looking for fundraising, if you're looking for cheat codes, I'm the wrong guy. If you're looking to put in the hard work, and you're willing to do it one step at a time, even when it gets difficult, to your point, the resilience, the grit, when does that come into play? When you run out of money. When does grit and resilience come into play? When you send 50 emails and no one responds. When does grit and resilience come into play? When you launch something on LinkedIn and you get 3 likes, right? But everyone starts at 0. And I think founders forget that. The founder of, I was just reading this the other day and it was just absolutely amazing to me. I forget who it was, but the founder of one of the unicorns, he started by going coffee shop to coffee shop, asking people to try his software. He's now worth billions of dollars. And when you look at him now, you would never believe that kid, because he was a kid, with his little sneakers and jeans and backpack, was nerdying around in a coffee shop being like, hey, I built something, will you try it? Everyone starts in the same place. And that's what the book Starting a Startup focuses on, which is no one's got a leg up on you. And maybe you might say people have a leg up because they live in Silicon Valley, or they have rich parents, or they went to MIT. Yes, there are silver spoon leg ups, but the reality is that doesn't stand the test of time, right? Eventually, the fact that your family has wealth or you have a good network runs out and the product has to speak for itself. So yes, if you don't have those silver spoons, yes, you have to work exponentially harder. Yes, you have to fight harder. You have to work stronger, just a fact of life. But everyone starts at 0. And so that's what starting a startup is you're at 0. How do we get to our first customer? That's the only goal. Get someone to pay for this damn thing. And how can you do that kind of without spending a fortune so you can bootstrap? And I think some of the AI tools now allow you to do things really, really quickly. The landing page, transcriptions, marketing pages, how do I say this better? I'm not a marketing guy. How do I talk about all these things that can accelerate you now exist? And so that's why I decided to write the book. And I'm confident that founders understand that I've been in the trenches. I've been there. And so I don't give any advice that I haven't been through myself. I've done it wrong. I've done it right. And I know the difference.
Absolutely. When is this book coming out? 7-8 months?
Yeah, it's September. But, it's great. It's great to start talking about it because, it's essentially a replication of my newsletter journey over the past 15 months that I've been going on and just helping founders kind of identify who they are. And the one thing I keep on hearing from kind of the readers of my newsletter is, oh, this hurt. This was great. I needed this. I felt this, right? I feel their pain. And the thing is, because I felt every pain, there's no founder will ever tell me something that's going to surprise me because I've been through all of it. I've been through everything. like there's no bad that I haven't completed. And so I think through that experience and having some good experience as well, I know that what founders want to hear, and it's not fluff. It's not bullshit. They want to hear someone who says, I know where you are right now. I know the problems you're having. Here are some things you might consider doing. I don't tell anyone what to do ever. It's your journey. But what I do is I say, hey, here are some questions that I believe you should be able to answer. And if you can't answer them, I'm going to help you work out how to answer them. So the book is about me just putting out fair questions that you should be able to answer about your startup, and then taking you on the journey of kind of how to answer them.
Absolutely. There's much to learn from you about startups, starting up, about from your book also, and also obviously from your newsletter. So for those people who would want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so, James?
Thanks, AJ. Starting a startup. Sorry, wrong website totally. That one's going live in about 6 months. Startuptoscaleup.com. So startuptoscaleup.com is my newsletter, and the email comes from me, and you can reply to me. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you're going to get an email that tells you everything about me. And it says in there, if you reply and tell me what you're doing and you have a question, I will reply. And I think I put in brackets, except for the crazies. But it might take me a minute, but I do read everything that comes in. And so, yeah, sign up for the newsletter, startuptoscaleup.com. And if you're working on something, you have a question, feel free to reply. You know, you can catch me on LinkedIn as well. Ultimately, for founders willing to do the work, I'm always going to show up for them. Always.
Always. Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, AJ.